Okay, I think we are ready to resume. Thank you very much, and I'm glad we were able to have that brief break. So today, just to kind of catch us up to where we're at now, we're now at item 13 on the agenda, which is entitled Policy Decisions, and I'll have Carrie introduce that in a moment, which will talk about operational concepts as well as looking at the architecture. And so both item 13 and item 14 are action items. But some of the things that we've gone over today, just most recently, the pilot system architecture. We talked about what enabling technology might look like. We talked about the insistence that there be a manual reporting system, which we'll get into. We've heard about telematics. We've heard about vehicle automation. We did have a really good review on transportation funding that Brady did. And Norma, one thing that I had heard was missing from that presentation that maybe we should talk about in the future was, while we showed the money coming in, we didn't show where the money is going out and where the needs are, and frankly what the deficit is. And that's just something, as we continue to educate members of this committee, that maybe it might not be a bad idea for a future meeting to have that dialogue as well. Yeah. Lee?
Yeah, and just a question that sort of followed up on a comment that Martin made earlier was, he alluded to the formulas that are used for distributing allocating money. And I was just curious whether those were things that, those formulas were things that people actually thought were correct, or whether if they were things that had been, maybe that, okay, I'll just shut up. But.
No. Wait. Let me just jump to Lee's defense. I mean, I think it's a legitimate question.
It's a very legitimate question.
It's also an extraordinarily complicated and political question. That the whole thing should be probably turned upside down and reframed differently, but that's not likely to happen. At least not from this committee.
Lee, I'll never forget the first meeting and what could be interpreted as a very common sense suggestion. Why aren't they just charging a little bit more on the vehicle license registration? But as you learned today, that's not even going to roads. So it's a very interesting approach to transportation finance in the state of California, and I would suspect around the United States as well. We're not unique. So with that, let's turn it over to Carrie to move us into item 13 on the agenda. Carrie?
Thank you, Chair. Taking into consideration the previous presentations by Matthew on the operational concepts and enabling technology, as well as the road charge pilot program architecture, there are some high-level policy decisions that we'd like to take some action on today. Shannon will be going through those, and I'm hoping that there'll be a robust discussion before you take action. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll do my broken record impression. Before you have three questions that you've seen twice now today. At the present time, they're phrased as yes, no types of questions. What I'm really hoping for is that we're able to get proposals from members of the committee for really how to address or get to the heart of each of these questions, and then have some discussion around those proposals. If you don't have proposals, I do, but I'd rather that they come from you. The other thing that I would really like to see come out of the next half hour or so is for each of these questions, because these are, again, very high level, areas where you would like to have more specific information, a different kind of information moving forward, so that because each meeting will become more and more specific in the types of decisions that we're asking you to make. And so to make sure that we're providing all of the support, all of the information that you need as we work through these questions, develop proposals, hopefully take action on those proposals. What do you need to know about what's before you now, so that you can continue to specify and filter down so that we can really get to a good program, 6 months from now. Does it make sense to everybody? So number one, should automated distance recording and reporting be offered in addition to manual methods?
I have an obvious question, I guess, because when we looked at, it was a great presentation. You're going over the various conceptions and the technologies, but it sure looked like everything was very unbaked for the automated options. And so, given that we're supposed to be doing this pretty soon, is it even actually realistically feasible to pilot them? I mean, they seem so not quite there. But maybe that's just I don't.
I don't want to speak for potential private sector partners. What I can say is that there are companies out there who have done this in a pilot context before with automated options, both GPS and non-GPS.
And then in that, so then do we? So another issue, I guess, is sort of Richard's certainly talked about looking at these in terms of the burden on the individual who would be being reporting, and then of course there's the cost question for those people and for the state. And even if the technology is, the options are mature enough to test from a workability standpoint, is it mature enough to make reliable cost and price comparisons? I mean, will we know enough about how much it would cost to scale them up for it to be worth testing them?
We have someone back at the home office right now who's starting to work on those economic models and the business case right now. At a pilot level, the cost that you're going to get won't really be reflective of real-world situation. Drawing again from other industries, the more highly automated a process becomes, the less expensive it becomes to operate, generally speaking. There are always people who make mistakes.
And again, I think we should probably keep our discussion on these things. These are high-level policy decisions. We can get into the weeds as we move forward, but for right now, it's akin to Richard Marcantonio's comments earlier today, wanting to make sure that we include manual. That's a general policy decision, high level. Now, what form of manual, we could still get into that. Yeah. There might be 3 forms. There might be 2. We kind of heard some of those a little bit earlier.
Chairman, I've always been one that likes to have options and provide options for folks. As well as others here, I kind of lean more towards a more manual system, but I don't think that we would be doing our job if we didn't explore all options and opportunities for folks around the state. In fact, if we came out of this exercise, without some of these more automated methods, people would probably be looking at us. What were you guys thinking? What were you doing? Why did you even spend your time doing this? So, my vote would be to add. I mean, I would look at at least the first 2, and support both options. Thank you.
So when you see both bullets, but I actually see 3 options in the 2 bullets. Automated and manual is in bullet number 1. GPS is in bullet number 2, so that's 3. And then the 3rd bullet is, should it simulate an open system option? Does everybody understand the concept now of open system?
Right.
To where it's an open architecture, it's not unique to any one manufacturer or company?
Well, I guess then I would rephrase it. I would support the first 2 bullet points.
Okay.
Yeah, and I do like an open system too, because I like the idea of having, leaving it open for innovation for other companies to be involved in the process. If you leave it to one company, then there's a huge bidding process, and typically, the people with the most weight in the room are going to win out, and a lot of times they may not be the most technologically advanced. They just have the most influence and the most money. So I'd support that also.
Okay, very good. So got a vote of support. Marty?
I have 2 sort of prior issues which shape my position on this. One is, I'm presuming, and I think I heard earlier this morning, everyone sort of agreed, that when we go into the field with this, that the people who participate, citizens of California who participate, will be volunteers. So that leads me to want more options so that they can have more choice, and we learn from the choices people make what worked and what didn't work. The second similar issue, again a high-level issue, is I envision that the pilot will be a test of technology that, if it works, will grow into a system. Not that we will do a pilot for a year and then close it down and maybe choose another system in the future. So I think that suggests that it must have some automated options and so on. I can't imagine that 20 and 30 years from now we're going to be relying upon a manual system only. So if I'm right on both counts, that the people who join us in this experiment are doing so voluntarily, and that we're trying to test a system which will grow into one that's applied more universally, I would answer all three questions with a yes.
I guess what I am interested in hearing the committee's thoughts on is in terms of the manual options. I think we've got three that were provided. And I understood that from Matthew that whatever we say we're interested in, next meeting we'll get more flesh on the bones. Is there any reason not to have all three of those come back to us next meeting? I would be inclined to see all three of those, and then I'd love to.
There's actually, four.
Oh, four, I'm
There were,
sorry.
if you count the odometer charge, prepay, and postpay as separate options, then there were four. So there was the mileage permit, the time permit, odometer charge, prepay, odometer charge, postpay as manual.
Thank you.
Stephen? Oh, go ahead, Marty.
Oregon actually is using one in which a person can say, I just want to pay a flat fee based upon an assumed mileage for the class of vehicle that they're driving. Is that not on the table as well?
That really equates to the time permit. You could do an annual time permit, which would be your flat fee for the year. Yeah.
I wanted to jump in. I'm, like has been voiced by others, I like options. I think that's, the within reason, the more options and choices we give people with this will lead to a more successful system in many different ways. So I'm for that, and therefore that would lead towards the automatic yeses, at least on the top two, if not beyond that. I think for the next, and these are sort of the higher level threshold decisions on a couple of these, and obviously at the next month's meeting we're going to get more detail on some of these, and I think that is important to learn about that. And since this is a pilot, the whole point is to test various things and to see which ones work. And to Lee's point about cost and scalability, that's leading down towards some of the evaluation criteria, of the pilot later, and that might help with some decisions further on. So I'm supportive. Definitely of the first one. We should have a variety of automated and manual methods. GPS immediately gets right into the privacy issues, and so that's a challenge. That's not a reason not to include it in the pilot. That's not a reason not to have that as an option or a choice. But obviously, as we go further down, privacy issues, we need to be looking at. And I think everyone here, I suspect everyone here likes the open system. No knock on, is our DMV guy still here? No knock on the DMV, but they've got a really old computer system that's a proprietary, closed system that is extraordinarily costly to make any changes with, and it's very challenging and difficult. So that experience alone should lead us in the direction of open. So.
Makes sense. Any other questions or comments on this?
Yeah,
Lee?
Yeah, so, frankly, I had sort of always assumed that we were going to include automated recording options. It never occurred to me that we'd be here and that we wouldn't have that.
You didn't fall over on that one. So.
No. I was actually more surprised that it was actually a decision.
I told you we were totally open. This is transparent operation here.
Yeah. Now, the open system thing is an interesting one for me because I completely agree that there are problems with that closed systems have significant lock-in problems, and it's very, very easy to be unable to change what you're doing. The thing that I don't like about the open system, at least not the way that they're talking about it in Oregon, is that I feel like it is it's just sort of offering a very state-based governmental function sort of program, and then opening it up in a way to give vendors an opportunity to sort of extract more data out of people, perhaps induce them with, discounts and offers and things like that to get more information out of them. And we do that all the time in the commercial world. That's accepted. That happens, but it's not usually harnessed to, I'm going to, register and do things that we have to do with the state, and then the commercial entity gets to piggyback on that. That feels a little more. It just doesn't. It feels kind of squeaky to me, and so that's so leaving aside the fact that I think an open system is otherwise better, it at the same time sort of creates this public-private profit partnership that I don't like.
Got him, and then Steve.
Well, sort of two things on that, I guess. Are one, is that obviated by a closed system? I mean, I guess the incentives are less, but that could still happen with a closed system. And two, isn't there a way to limit the downstream use? I mean, if the state is licensing to private entities, participation in the program, the state can also limit what the private entity does with the data, or limit their ability to, access more data. I mean, isn't actually what I forget his name, the gentleman from Oregon who's running the program.
From Jim Whitty, right?
Yes, he and I did ask him about this. I don't remember if it was in the meeting or after the meeting, but he said that they had done that, and there was oversight to make sure that wasn't necessarily happening on a broad scale.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in on that too. I mean, I don't think an open architecture means by definition there has to be sort of unfettered commercial access to information for a variety of purposes, good or not good. And I was surprised at the Oregon description, at least as it was presented, in what the private companies could possibly do. That sort of alarmed me a bit. But that's different. I think that's different than a concept of open architecture that could have a variety of rules, tight or not tight, associated with it.
Yeah, no, I think they're not logically and connected. It just, I fear that they are in realpolitik connected, and what I care about are actual outcomes. So I just put that out there. That's a concern I have.
It's a legitimate concern. So, any other questions or comments? This is an item that we do want to.
Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry, Eric.
Question of process.
Yeah.
Is it appropriate for me to vote on these things if we are not technically involved in the pilot?
Well, I don't see why you wouldn't.
Okay. Thank you.
You're a member of the committee.
All right.
And having the expertise of your industry sitting at this table is crucial for all of us.
And there's always the possibility in policy discussions that,
You said
May I,
Marty?
a brief comment? I would not include in further considerations options which require the development of new technology. So the notion that there are time sensors that could be developed to put on an engine, it makes that option less realistic to include in a pilot program that we're going to try to implement in a year or two. The unknowns of potential technological complications just, I think, should remove that from consideration.
Okay. Any members of the public?
Sorry.
Richard Marcantonio, and then we'll go to the audience.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing, I agree with the concern that there's an open architecture, properly regulated, there's an open architecture, Wild West. And I'd like to either put that on the parking lot for the appropriate discussion later, or maybe better yet, see if there's a sense of the committee that we do want to make sure that this will be rolled out with the right protections in place, the open architecture.
Well, I think that that's something that could be part of the policy motion that we have in front of us
Right.
here.
I
And
think the proposal that you make can include
yeah.
that, subject to the will of the rest of the committee.
Yeah, maybe for future meetings, you guys, what we can do is set up that screen to where you guys can type on additional things.
Okay.
Unless you have that ability right now,
No, we
Jeff.
do not.
Okay.
No.
Because that's a PDF. It would be nice to be able to do that, so that way we'll be more interactive
Okay.
for the process of formulating a motion of this committee. Is there anything that's not on the screen now? Maybe, Richard, you might want to re-articulate what you just said as part of that third bullet, but is there anything on the screen right now that anybody has mentioned that's not there that we want to have on in the motion?
I think there are three things that I heard, and I don't know what the consensus is on them, but one is what I just said about the open system being developed in a way that is safeguarding whatever needs to be safeguarded. Two is that all four manual options will come back to us with more detail. And the third is that not all of the automated options, Marty specifically mentioned the time sensor. I don't know if there are others that are too technologically speculative that we wouldn't want to pilot them, but those are the three things that I guess I'm hearing.
Okay, so let's incorporate those comments into the record. I've got it staff acknowledged as part of our direction on this first high-level policy decision for our meeting today. Let's now take it to members of the audience that might want to comment. Sir, come up to the microphone if you would, please, and state your name. Did you fill out a slip by chance? We'll have you do that after you speak. Yeah, you could do that after you speak. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
My name is Phil Dow.
Oh, hit the button in the front there.
I probably don't even need one.
Well, the television world needs it.
That one?
There you go. There you got it.
That's it.
Phil Dow, I'm the director of the Mendocino Council of Governments rural area, and my comment is that much like a lot of the rural areas, I don't have very good broadband coverage in our area, and yet alone cellular coverage in all areas. And so I would hope that the committee would consider using all the alternatives available in the pilot study, including those that are very low tech, in consideration of the rural areas, to make sure that we can participate.
I think that's an outstanding suggestion, and I would imagine that would be included in the manual options. Thank you, sir, and please turn in that slip when you get done filling it out to Ann. Any other members of the public, the audience that wish to speak? Bill Higgins, you're not saying anything? Nothing. Just picking on somebody, that's all. You're welcome. He's a good one to pick on, right? Okay, so seeing no other comments from the committee or the audience, do we have a motion to adopt these high-level policy decisions, including the comments that Richard Marcantonio made?
Yes.
We have a motion? Robert?
Second.
You're the maker of the motion? Who's the second? Oh, I'm sorry, got him. Got him. All right, with a motion from Got Him Hands and second from Richard. Robert, is there any other questions or comments on the motion? All right, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? No opposed. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Fantastic. We will now move on to item 14 on the agenda. Carrie?
Based on our discussions today, Jeff has been very diligently keeping track of action items that we could potentially be bringing forward at the April meeting or future meetings, and I'll pass it over to Jeff, and he can provide that information.
Thank you, Carrie. There are 4 items that we noted that I guess I would probably put in the category of action items for us on the staff team and consultant team to come back to you soon, next meeting, by next meeting, and then there perhaps one could be characterized as parking lot. First, brought up early was a question about how any acceleration of the entire pilot program may impact the TAC in its work. And I think we already provided a verbal answer, but we will go back and scrub that and provide more detail if we need to, if we find any other impacts. The second, which I would also characterize as an action item, is to take Caltrans up on their offer of research and have the committee members principally look at the upcoming decision schedule and see which items you see that are on the horizon that you would like to have perhaps additional research to be done by Caltrans through the UTC system, and identify those for Caltrans soon, before the next meeting, ideally.
If I could just add to that, I think one of my thoughts at that point also was, using the expert advice of Caltrans and other staff involved to eyeball it as well, to let us know or to identify something that maybe nobody else brings up, but you guys will know. We could use more information on this.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Item 3 that I have, which potentially could be parking lot depending on the timing, is the suggestion that this committee reach out to Asha Agrawal, who is the staff person at the Mineta Institute who's conducting the study on public attitudes and acceptance, the NCHRP study, and to have her come back and report either a progress report on what she's finding or ideally a final report if she will be done with her study in time, a meaningful time for this committee's deliberations. And the fourth item was wanting more information on fraud and evasion on the various reporting methods, particularly the manual methods. And on this, I might put this one in the parking lot only because we're going to look at this issue in more depth in August when we start looking at compliance and enforcement mechanisms. Those were the 4 that I had. Okay.
Is your understanding of the fourth one that it would include sort of general cybersecurity stuff? Because it seems like anything that has to do with the, susceptibility of the technology to any kind of intrusion would automatically register on sort of the fraud scale. So I guess the reason why I raised that is because I don't know if we really want to put it off that way, or whether maybe I don't know. It's more you guys are the ones that are doing the work, but I worry that on something as that we have always found to be complicated and difficult to get good information about, like actual security, because most people who vend products do not like to talk about what could go wrong with their products. It might be good to be aggressive about that.
Yes, we can probably be more exact in this question also. In August, when we're talking about compliance and evasion, we're really looking at it primarily from a revenue standpoint. To get at the issues that you're raising, they are going to be dealt with earlier because they'll come up in both the privacy and the data security discussions that we'll have sooner.
Okay. Any other parking lot issues? Wow, you guys are easy. Well, everybody is in concurrence then. We should just probably take an action on that to entertain a motion to accept that parking lot to come back for future meeting. Moved by Eric, seconded by Marty. Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. That motion, any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Well, you guys are so good. Yeah, so good. You're going to, okay, yes. Yeah, you're going to oppose your own motion. I've done that before, actually. There you go. There you go. All right. Well, thank you very much. We're now into the last item on the agenda, item 15, which is public comment. And I have such an engaged audience. We've either done a great job here and we've answered all their questions, or we've put them asleep and they're sitting up. We can't tell. But no, I thank the members of the public that are here for participating. Clearly, as you have ideas, don't hesitate to come up here. As you can tell, we try to make this as collaborative and as open as possible, so all ideas are included. And for all of you who did attend today, I want to say thank you for that. Any members of the committee want to add anything else for the good of the order before we adjourn?
I have one issue I'd like to...
Yes, Professor?
Before I was appointed to this body, I was part of the group of university researchers who would do the research that would support it, and I was encouraging Caltrans to work with the universities through our university transportation centers. It was stated that there was we could get white papers in a time frame of 3 to 5 months. That's rather optimistic given the time that it takes to negotiate contracts, for university contract officers to approve what Caltrans has approved. It often takes longer than that, and I think it would behoove us to be efficient at identifying topics and themes early so that we can actually get some results. And one which comes to mind, two or three topics come to mind right away. One is to explore, ask the university to explore the impact on low-income and minority populations of mileage-based user fees. There is a literature on equity, but it's more about rural versus urban and heavier vehicle owners versus lighter vehicles. There's less on the impacts on particular population groups, and I think that we could suggest as soon as today that would be a valuable contribution to our deliberations. Another one that I'm particularly interested in, but maybe others don't think is, that one I think is pretty obvious, but the second one is less obvious. I'd be interested in knowing how the data generated on mileage from the mileage-based user fee program could actually affect the distribution of funds or the allocation of funds among urban areas or versus rural, among counties and cities, because there is quite a lot of money that flows in those directions, and I think it could be improved by data generated through collected in the mileage-based program, and that's a researchable topic as well. Those are my two suggestions. There may well be others.
Norma?
I think it's certainly doable. We've had conversations with our research group and our procurement office, and they're ready to move fairly quickly. What I would say is that the first one seems to tie in very nicely with the decisions this group needs to make. The second one may not be as urgent as, and certainly we will entertain it, but may not be as urgent for getting us to the pilot phase.
But these are all good things to take note of, and I see that staff is writing them down, which we will review back all these notes. I mean, there's no question. Everything that we've talked about here today, it's part of our record. So, okay, with that, April 24th, Monterey, California. Again, if you have any questions, members of the task force, make sure you email or call Ann. She will help out. And seeing no other business before this task force, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.